So there's been like a theme to my week. I'm not kidding. I've had 3 different women just come talk to me, not like seeking counsel from me, just friends, just talking and then ending up in conversation about generally speaking, because everybody had different issues or struggles, but generally speaking, situations that they're struggling with, dealing with right now with their husbands, something that their husband is or is not doing that would make them feel more loved and cherished, but he's not necessarily in sin. So it's not something that you can like bring up and reprove in love biblically. If anything, it's just, hey, this would make your wife feel more loved and cherished. You should try to do this. But also, it's unfair to hold someone to a standard that isn't necessarily biblical and hard for them to do, So that's been like the theme to the week. It's been so interesting because I don't think that that's really ever been a topic that I've talked to with friends, just because everybody's very guarded on how much they say about their husbands, because you don't want to slander them or sound like you're complaining about them or anything like that. And everybody's extra careful, so careful that stuff like this that should be talked about is also avoided. And as a result, we don't know how to respond. What do you do? So it got me into looking through marriage books, frenzy, and just talking to my husband and thinking about myself, like how do I handle this? Because I know there's things that I'm like, I wish he did this or didn't do this. And how do I find contentment in the fact that it may never change and it may change? And yeah, there's shallow stuff like not putting clothes in the hamper, and then there's profound stuff like not like the technology video that I made, like, look at me when you're talking to me, it makes me feel like you don't care what I'm saying. That's more deep than I'll just put the pants in the hamper for him, it's okay. Then I'll just deal with the fact that my husband's never going to look at me when I'm talking. That's a big difference, And so as wives seeking to honor the Lord, submit and respect to our husbands, how do we handle these situations? And it's a very good and challenging question, I think. I think that we have to examine our hearts, because I think that everyone's going to be different. Every situation's going to be different. You could be idolizing intimacy with your husband and oneness and companionship, and then you could just be desiring this thing, and it not necessarily be an idol. I think what determines if it's an idol or not, if it causes you to sin, then it might be an idol. It might be something that you're idolizing. And I can definitely confess that I have idolized it before, because it has caused me to sin. It's caused me to have a bad attitude when he doesn't act the way I want him to act. It's caused me to be bitter or resentful or distant or cold when I've told you this so many times. How can you not be doing it already? Don't you care? We've been married 8 years, and that's sin. I'm sinning in my attitude, and so that identifies that as an idol. So that, and then it could be as simple as I haven't been in the Word for several days, and so I'm not finding my fulfillment in Christ, and I'm seeking my fulfillment in my husband, and he's gonna fail me because he's a human sinner and he's incapable of fulfilling me like Christ can. And so I'm just, all the wrongs, all the things that we wish were different are just popping out at us. Whereas when you're in the Word faithfully and you're finding your fulfillment in Christ, and you're just in the Word, I mean, it really, truly, truly does guide your life. I don't know, it's just easier to see those things and brush them off and move forward and continue just loving him the way you should. So, things to think about: examine your heart, question yourself if it's an idol or not. I'm sure it has been an idol at some point or another. And then finding fulfillment in Christ, be diligently in the Word. When you're not in the Word, you will not be fulfilled with the things this world has to offer, because they are all fallen and cursed and sinful, and nothing can fulfill you. Only Christ can. So you must be in the Word. You must be in union with God. And also, of course, your husband, yes, he's going to have things that you wish he did differently that are not, and I'm not talking about sin, I'm talking about just things like, I wish he did this, I wish he did that, whatever, or that he didn't do this or that because it makes me feel this way or makes me feel that way. Your husband is going to have those things, and maybe he will see them and work towards correcting them or improving on them, and maybe he will not see them. And it is not our place to constantly nag them about it, because that will definitely bring bitterness, resentment, irritation, lack of willingness to discuss it when time is appropriate. I'm not saying never talk about it. I am definitely not saying that. There are things that I have spoken to my husband about throughout the years. We've been married 8 years, and I can say there's nothing wrong with this, but I haven't seen much change, and that's okay. I'm not saying he's doing anything wrong. It's just something that, what am I going to do? Keep bringing it up and bother him all the time and make his life miserable? Or just die to myself and say, you know what, Lord, I'm going to be fulfilled in you and just continue to obey the scriptures, to love and submit and respect my husband. And, he loves me in so many extraordinary ways. Those are the things we need to be focused on, is on the ways that your husband does love you well and does cherish you well. And sure, there are some things that you wish were different, but don't focus on that. Focus on the good. And it's easy to focus on the bad. We need to be gracious and forgiving and just extend grace to our husbands who are, if you stop and think, am I thinking rationally right here? If he only did this, then I would feel loved. Really? So you don't feel loved? You don't think he loves you? Of course you know he loves you. Of course you think he loves you. So then what are you trying to get at with if he only did this, So I hope this is not too scattery. It's just a bunch of thoughts being blabbled, and I've just talked to so many people this week about it that there's like a lot of good stuff to share. So in a nutshell, I will try again. Examine your heart. If it's an idol, be in the Word. Don't nag your husband. Pray to the end of finding contentment with whatever happens. If you do speak to your husband and things don't change, pray that the Lord will help you to be content even with that it's not changing. And I think that's it. So focus on yourself, how you can be a better wife, how you can be a more godly wife, selfless, serving, giving versus what about me, what about this, what about that. And I know that's so hard and it's easier said than done, but then when you're in that moment, it's like, so I understand. But I hope this has been helpful and beneficial to wives out there who don't know what to do when their husband truly is doing something that he could be doing better, or not doing something that he could be doing better, and you've talked about it and nothing's changing, and now what? Now what do you do? I mean, please just do the thing I've told you that I need you to do so that I can be happy. And there are some passages that aren't necessarily going to identify him sinning, but may encourage him. I wish I would have written it down. When it talks about husbands, live with your wife in an understanding way. I think it's in Peter. That's specifically talking about a woman's emotions and how we need them to meet our emotional needs. So that might be a passage. And then, of course, Ephesians 5:25, talking about cherishing your wife. And how do you cherish your wife? Those are good questions for a man to think about. How can I show my wife that I love her and cherish her today? So before I keep rambling, I'm going to end this. But thanks for watching and have a good day.